And to anyone listening, I challenge you, if you could just convert 1% of your leads over the course of a year that are dead opportunities that you thought into a signed case, what's that going to do over the year or over, 10 years, whatever it is?
Sharp Strategies, Sweet Success.
Welcome to Sharp Strategies, Sweet Success. This is your host, Tiffany Spadensky. I'm here today with Joe Rutolo from Intaker. And today I have a few questions about him. I first met him, I think a couple years ago. We've done a few Zoom calls and then met him in person at the GLM Summit back in 2024. And today he's here with me, and we're just going to talk about how lawyers can get more conversions from their website, what he knows, his insights into the legal marketing industry, and generally like what trends that Joe sees and what he sees over there at Intaker. So, and it's been really handy to work with Joe and Intaker for all of my clients. Maybe not all of them, but actually it might be all of them at this point. Intaker is a fantastic tool. I really don't have enough good things to say about it. Use it all the time. So I just wanted to put that in there really quick. So Joe, I'll turn it over to you to let you kind of finish the introduction.
Well, Tiffany, thank you for having me. And I know we've been in each other's orbit for like a few years, but getting a chance to meet you face to face at Great Legal Marketing and just get to know you on like a more personal level. That was one of the joys, the gems of the conference for me. So anyway, yeah, for those who don't know, I'm Joe with Intaker, and I'm head of marketing over there. But between sales and partnerships and now marketing, it's been a journey over the past 5 years for me to watch the company grow. And now it's more than 50 people across, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 different countries. But a lot of the client-facing stuff and the sales and the success is all here in Los Angeles. So that's where I'm based. And it is just great to be here with you, and I can't wait to dive in.
Well, so the first question I had is basically like how the space has changed since you started, because Intaker is pretty much pre-AI, which at this point is like a different moment in time for marketing. So like what was the space like when you guys got started, and how has it changed?
That is an interesting question. You called it pre-AI, which I would say is valid. Intaker being like started out as an automated chat. A lot of people use AI to kind of describe the product in that it's not like a live human chat operator. I felt bad correcting people for a long time. Good news, now we don't have to, because it is, become a real AI platform. And I'll get to that. But yeah, just where it began, and like the super short version of the story is my friend, who's also my boss and our CEO, Puya, was in a co-working space working with another startup that he was working on, also in the AI space. And he had this personal injury lawyer next to him in like a little startup office in a WeWork, and it was super loud, just on the phone all day. And Puya, as the story goes, politely took his neighbor out to lunch to ask him to keep it down, but got to actually have a conversation about what he was working on, and heard that, just a lot of it was spent time on the phone talking to people who oftentimes didn't even have a case, right? And so he built like a little link for him to send to clients just to capture some of that preliminary info before the phone call to make it more productive. And that was kind of the genesis, because his neighbor said, "Hey, I actually have a few friends from law school that have their own practices now, and they'd probably find this really useful, just as a tool to help them." And so that was kind of the light bulb moment. And then fast forward, after launching like a wait list and just testing out to see if there's demand in the market with a few paid ads on Facebook and things like that. And they got a signal that, people were looking for something like this. And so they came in not really knowing much about the legal space, had a background in tech, but had to kind of build the plane as they were flying it, in a sense. I joined the company like a year in, after they already had found somewhat of a product market fit. At that point, like Engage, if anyone here has had experience with different legal chat companies, and Engage was still on most law firm websites that had chat, use that product. Between Engage and Apex, that was pretty much the options back then. There weren't too many, especially with the automated chats that we see are more popular now. So anyway, we found our niche being kind of the first automated chat built specifically for legal that could help take the intake process and streamline it by getting a lot of the screening questions out of the way to see if there's a case, if there's clearly not a case, and then pass that on to the team at the law firm. And that was great. We solved some big problems for people, especially going into COVID when people couldn't come into the office and just everything was uncertain, the whole future. That was around the time that we also launched the video feature, which is kind of one of the things that we became known for, the first chat to use video to welcome and greet people and get them into the process. And now, fast forward to today, there's so much more. It's not only like the company and the growth and like the new product offerings, but the competition, the other companies that are starting up that are seeing that, legal has been an area kind of ripe for change for probably decades and decades because there's still firms out there using paper. And, we were blessed to like be kind of, to see where the trend was moving and to be in a good spot for it. And, now we work with over 1,000 law firms, big and small, not just with chat anymore, but a lot of these new offerings, including things like AI agents, which maybe we'll have a chance to get to today.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll definitely talk about AI and AI agents. That's a hot topic. And I remember when like Engage was definitely the leader in the space, and it was sophisticated in that it was a real operator handling a chat on your website. And I remember at one point like experimenting with like having the in-house team handles chat, and it was a nightmare. And so, Engage was really good for it back in the day. But yeah, the AI tools that have come out, it's just gotten a lot easier, I think, to handle those types of interactions. And the video part of it, which yeah, you guys did become known for because everyone was bragging about the little video on their website. And it just kind of snowballed because everyone wanted that. And honestly, like we tested it in one of my law firms. We took away the video and just had the little chat head pop up, which, is kind of classic chat. And we were kind of curious to see like how like engagement would change. And we thought it would improve with taking the video off, but it actually didn't. It actually like decreased a little bit. So that video is like a big piece of it and it's a big help. So definitely love that part of it. And you guys are handling messages from local service ads as well, right?
Yeah, I would say that beginning of last year, beginning of 2024, was when we had a few customers come to us and say, hey, we're doing we're doing an LSA campaign and we're using messages. And, for your listeners, they some know, but for those who don't, when you use messages as well as phone calls on LSA, it gives you a slight edge in the rankings. So firms are able to climb above their competitors with a caveat, and that is if you handle the messages well, meaning the way that Google wants you to, which means getting back to people quickly. And so that was a big issue for some of our customers, who were using us for chat, but they were doing a lot with LSA, and they needed support, they needed help. And with other companies coming in and managing local service ads for people, oftentimes doing it manually, that's good for I think it's good for a little while, but I imagine that especially as you're scaling, as you're starting to spend more and you're just getting a higher volume of leads, it can get tedious, right? That's the whole thing with using humans to guarantee a fast response time is eventually things start to slip through the cracks, whether you do it in-house or you use a vendor. So what we did is, we built this, our first AI agent. It had been something that was kind of, we knew that we wanted to get into that world, moving away from just being on chat and really being more omni-channel, right? And so between like text, SMS, between website chat, between LSA, and now, looking at Google business profile messages are coming back as well. And WhatsApp is coming to Google. Like there's just so much that's happening. So being omni-channel is really important for us. And it started with the transition to local service ads. And it wasn't easy because Google, being one of the biggest companies in the world, can also have rocky product launches, right? And so, there were some hiccups in the beginning, but we were able to turn things around for first those two clients that I mentioned, and then for many more. So I can talk a little more detail about that because the issue that they were having was, they were coming in, leads were coming in to their messages, but they weren't getting responded to fast enough. That creates a badge on your Google LS listing that has the response time. That could be typically a few minutes or hours, or even typically replies in a day. And that was the case for a lot of their profiles. That's two things that influences where you are in the rankings. Long response time means you're low in the rankings, and it's a public badge, so people see it, and that's a signal that'll tell someone, is this firm going to be responsive or not? And so that could lead to people just moving past your ad in the first place for LSA. So we were able to help them in less than 60 days go from typically response in a day to response in a few minutes. And I say 60 days because it uses like a 90-day rolling average. It's not immediate. If you start, responding to LSA messages instantly, it still takes time for that to reflect in your rankings. That wound up becoming one of our most popular offerings. And so now, there's hundreds of firms out there using Intaker for their LSA messages. We're not doing phone calls yet. We can talk a little bit about AI voice and where that's going. That's not an area that we're playing in right now, but there's a lot of companies moving in that space. And by this time next year, you're probably going to talk to a robot on the phone and not know it.
I think I already have actually. A lot of the telemarketers, like if you pick up the phone calls, they're using like AI voice now, and sometimes it sounds really authentic, and it's kind of fun. So, one thing I wanted to talk about with the AI messages and having Intaker respond to those. So, like what we're able to do for one of my clients is that when somebody responds, like let's say somebody messages and it's like 8 p.m. and we don't have an intake team in the office to pick it up, we have a system set up to where, Intaker will notify us of that lead. And then if nobody is available to answer, like we immediately send that lead's data to our outbound call service, who contacts the lead and is able to do an intake like on the phone, like day or night. And that process, it's pretty incredible. Like, I feel like attorneys like look at the numbers and it's like, yeah, you do that and you only sign like one case over 30 days. But then the other way to look at it is you signed one case over 30 days. And, systematizing something like that can really help like convert earlier on a lot of those leads that are coming through. And, I just think that's super cool. You guys said you're moving into voice, and that's something that's coming up next year.
I can't speak to details. Here's what I can tell you is that I've talked to companies that are doing voice in legal, and I've seen a lot of demos out there of other companies doing voice more, to a mass market, industry agnostic audience. Voice isn't something that we're, going to be moving into or announcing quickly, but what I can tell you is that it's going to be the next revolution for how humans and machines interact. If anyone's played around with ChatGPT, voice mode, advanced voice mode, you can start to see how that works. What I can mention though with voice is how multimodal inputs are going to be changing how people interact on websites, as well as with like talking to AI. But first, I'll just mention that one of the things that we bet on kind of early on was that voice was going to take off. It wasn't the kind of generative AI that came out in 2022. If there's any old school Intaker users listening, you might remember that there was like a voice mode on the chat in the early days, but really that was for like the chat itself to kind of narrate and ask questions of the user to make it a little bit more engaging, to make it different. That didn't take off quite as we expected, but what we did find and what we have learned is that there are many times when people, if they're engaging on a website, if they're looking to like leave some information, it's really a lot easier if someone is in the middle of something, or maybe if they're driving or anything like that, to leave a voice note instead of have to type something out long. So one of the things that is coming that I can talk about, is coming pretty soon, maybe by the time this episode is out, is voice input for chat. And so that allows the program, the user to go in the chat, and instead of typing out a long story, if you're asking just for like, the big picture story, or if you if you need to get a lot of details, being able to just give someone the option to leave a voice note explaining in their own words whatever they need to explain, having AI transcribe that and analyze it, and then send that to the law firm, along with whatever other questions you might want to ask, just as a way to make the experience even easier. Because as I'm sure you know, any points of friction in the process, especially if it is like just in the beginning, like pre-conversion, before you even get the phone number, right? If someone winds up typing something that they feel might take too long, or that is too much effort, or maybe they just got distracted because they didn't budget, the time it took to type out a message that took 45 seconds, they could be gone. You know what I mean? And so having a way that is a little bit more engaging, a little bit more personal, is something that has kind of guided our product direction for a while. And so, we're excited to bring voice input to chat. And then, yeah, I can't say much about Intaker creating voice agents, but what I can tell you is that the whole industry is moving in that direction, and that this year is going to be it's going to be wild. It's going to be kind of weird by the end of it. I mean, I've already seen videos of AI people that look, a little bit too real. I'm sure you've seen the same.
Oh yeah. Actually, one of the platforms that we use to generate AI video when we're struggling to get an attorney to make more content for us, they now require like an ID process. Like if you're going to make video on their platform, they want to make sure it's actually you that they're like, and not like somebody using like a long video they just scraped off the internet. And I'm seeing a lot of that on like TikTok and Instagram as well, where you have like content creators who just make something purely just to promote a product. So it's really interesting to see it in the wild.
Yeah, well, just to add to that, I'm actually here at the TGR Live conference in Florida right now, and Justin Lovely just gave a talk today about all the ways he uses AI in his firm. And one of those was making training videos for his staff, creating systems and systematizing things, and making sure that if there's like updates to, some of the SOPs, he doesn't have to reshoot a video, right? He has his AI avatar that he can just go ahead, type in whatever changes need to happen on the video, and then boom, he's able to ship that out without picking up a camera.
I actually had my team create an AI video for one of my clients, and they looked at it and they were like, it looks realistic, but it doesn't look like me. And then they showed it to their daughter, and their daughter is like, that's not you, that's not you. But what I have to remind people is like, it might look like off to you, somebody who sees your face every day, but like to most people, it just looks pretty normal and natural. It's not like, their lips are out of sync anymore. It's come so far, and it's really neat. And yeah, I love implementing AI tools, and sometimes like small steps are better than like big steps. Before you make like an AI avatar, like, just try, I don't know, automating something simple or testing it out. That's generally my recommendation. So one of the questions I had for you, because you go out and you talk to a lot of people, you're doing a lot of these conferences, like, what are some of the big issues that attorneys are coming to you with that you can help them solve? Like, what are you hearing over and over?
So I'll tell you something that's come up a few times at this conference right now. And that is the issue of, call them unresponsive leads. I'm sure anyone listening to this who has a law firm who's driving leads has run into the issue of, what do you do with all these leads who raise their hand, ask for support, right? And then when your team called them back or tried to reach them, they just didn't pick up. It's a pain point. Again, it's not just legal, but especially for law firms. I think there's the misconception that, oh, if a lead contacted me and then they ghosted, then some other firm scooped them up, right? And that happens quite often. I'm not saying it doesn't, but there's a statistic, I forget the number, but it's just a surprising number of potential legal cases every year in the United States never get advanced or are never even pursued often because, it's sensitive, it's emotional. Sometimes it's easier for people to just try to forget whatever the problem is, whether that's an injury, whether that's a divorce, or potential divorce, or even something like an estate planning that could just seem overwhelming for someone. Now, one of the things is if you get those leads and they go unresponsive, I know firms who, have a pretty good intake system have whatever it is, a 3x3, where they're contacting people 3 times, through 3 channels, once a day, every day for 3 days, or it could be something bigger than that, depending on your practice area. But at the end of the day, there's always going to be some portion of your leads that are just sitting there, kind of getting stale. And that's I think an issue that I heard from a few different people, and that's also one of the areas that we are actively building something that I think is going to be. I know for a fact it's going to be an industry first, but I think it's going to help firms, a lot of firms who struggle with this issue, even if they have intake systems that make their competitors look bad. There's always those room for improvement, and what that is, it's called outbound AI agents. Typically, when people think about AI and these agents, an agent, by the way, is an AI that can perform actions for you, right? Like schedule a dinner reservation or book a flight, right? Those are a few examples that people might have heard of. And for Intaker, we use AI agents like these. You can imagine them as inbound to when someone contacts you, then the agent is able to respond, to capture the information, and kind of guide them through next steps, right? Or maybe that's scheduling a time on your calendar if they are qualified, or maybe moving them in a different direction if they're not qualified for you. But in all those traditional cases, a user takes the first move and AI is responding. But these outbound AI agents that we're about to come out with our first pretty soon, they're different in that AI is what makes the first move. And so I can just give you an example. Let's say that you're a firm and you've got a list of leads that are older, unresponsive, and you're just having a hard time getting a hold of them. Like I said before, maybe they went through the 3x3 process or whatever you have for your follow-up, and now they're just sitting there, right? And maybe if you're lucky, you've got someone at your firm calling them or texting them, a week out or something like that. But what this agent is able to do is actually just nudge these leads to restart the conversation over text, over SMS, and find out, hey, you reached out to XYZ law firm, a few days ago or a few weeks ago. Were you still looking for support? Did you find the help you need, right? And if they say, yeah, I'm still looking. No, I didn't find the help yet. Then the agent is able to now turn that lead, which was an old stale lead, back into now an active conversation, but go a little bit further and actually say, hey, if you're still looking for help, we'd be happy to chat. It's now a good time for a phone call. And if the lead is able to, opt in, say, yeah, you can call me, then the AI can now perform like a warm transfer, calling the firm, letting them know, hey, you've got whatever lead, John from 3 weeks ago on the line. Do you want to connect? And you'll be able to opt in and then now connect. And now you and John are talking on the phone off of an opportunity that might have just been dormant, or you might have marked it as lost. And let's say that maybe John can't talk right now, but he says, no, now's not good, but call me tomorrow morning or something. Then the system, the AI is smart enough to like, okay, I'll text you then. And then follow up the next day at the right time. Say, now is an okay time for a call. And whenever that is, bridge the call, do a warm transfer, basically take any of those opportunities that might have been just discarded or assumed like, they're not worth anything, and turn those into cases. And to anyone listening, I challenge you, if you could just convert 1% of your leads over the course of a year that are dead opportunities that you thought into a signed case, what's that going to do over the year or over, 10 years, whatever it is? The thing that I want to point out is like, this is big because we've never had AI be proactive in terms of creating, a real result for a business. And I know, especially for personal injury firm, getting people on the phone is kind of that's really the only thing that matters at the end of the day, because they're not going to sign with you if they don't talk to you. There are exceptions to that, which we can get into later, but for the most part, we can assume that's kind of the real metric that's important. And so having AI be able to turn those old leads into phone calls actively with either you or your team, I think it's pretty cool, pretty impressive. And by the time you listen to this, you should be able to use it if you're an intaker.
Really excited about that because I think lawyers overall underestimate how scary it is for a non-lawyer to call a law firm, no matter what kind of practice area you have. I mean, I've talked to people who have had legal issues. Some have gone to lawyers, some haven't. And they all say like initially it's really scary. And that's what I like about chat because, chat becomes like one of those channels that's like a stepping stone almost. Like, yeah, maybe you're not going to sign a case directly out of chat, just through chat, but maybe they'll do chat before they actually call or before you call them back and get them to call. It's a little less intimidating, I guess. And that's what's important about it. You need those like less intimidating avenues of communication. And then like also I'm really excited about this tool because like generally I think people again lawyers underestimate how many people will walk away with a legal issue and never hire a lawyer. And you might think, oh, if they were seriously injured, of course they would hire a lawyer. But you might be surprised, if health insurance covers most of their medical bills and they don't want to deal with somebody in court, then not going through a lawyer and sacrificing a couple $1,000s for themselves or maybe more, seems like a reasonable option if it saves them the fear of contacting a lawyer, I guess. And like, the follow-up chats and using AI to do that, I think is so smart because, like let's say back in the day before AI, we could send out like text to people if we had their cell phone number and say, hey, did you contact a lawyer? But like if they responded in any kind of way that's like, hey, I want to talk, but I can't talk now, we didn't really have good systems for like handling that. We just had to hope the person handling the intake saw that message, put it on their calendar to call them back at this time, then call them back. And, you and I both know that's probably wasn't happening at 99.9% of firms. And so like using AI to like read and interpret these messages, set its own rules for when to follow up, and then like kind of act as like an alley-oop to get that person from, text message to a phone call, which that's a lot easier to do than just like hoping somebody will pick up the phone and call you from, Google Business. So yeah, I mean, I really love that. I mean, those are really exciting features. I really love how AI has enabled us to more easily follow up with everyone and all of these new tools that we just really didn't have before. Because Engage back in the day, I mean, it was basically, alert communications via chat, pretty simple. But the stuff you guys are doing with Intaker is really impressive and really cool.
Well, Tiffany, I mean, I can tell you that it's partners like you and the clients that you choose to work with that really have guided the product direction over the past 6 years that we've been around. And, it takes like forward-thinking marketers, forward-thinking lawyers, and people in the community that really, want to see the whole industry move forward. I mean, that's who we're here to serve, and I believe the stats are still like, there's about 100,000 law firm websites. I don't know if I'm pretty sure just in the States, and 10% of those use chat. So
Man, really?
if you're using any chat, I should clarify, those numbers are about 3 years old by now. So I'm sure it's get off by a little bit, but the point is that if you're using chat at all, if you're thinking about this, if you're listening to this show, you're ahead more than 99% of the different firms out there. And so, if you want to really step into, even further into, what you can do with technology to help take away the friction for your clients and to help make growth, a little bit easier for you and your team, that's really why we're in this game and helping small businesses. We've started working with businesses outside legal. We've been totally laser focused on legal for the past, again, 6 years, but now, moving into other areas like home services and learning lessons in those verticals, in those industries that we're able to bring back into legal, I think is another really exciting thing because, we built a product for lawyers and we take feedback from lawyers to kind of guide where to go next. But I believe the amazing marketer, he became famous for taking marketing ideas in one industry and applying them to a totally other industry where no one was using those techniques and getting just way outsized returns from it. So anyway, that's, another one of my hopes is using this opportunity, going just a little bit further beyond legal, see, what else is happening in the industry, because it's there's just so much happening right now that if we just stay looking in this one vertical and one legal, we could miss out on something that could really help everyone in our client community that we would not have seen otherwise. So anyway, between AI agents, reintroducing voice into the mix, moving into new industries, there's like a lot cooking here, but it's exciting stuff, and I know that we're just going to keep innovating, doing our best to be creative and have fun doing it. And, I guess you need to provide great service because that's kind of the cornerstone of it. But, those are kind of the values driving the company forward right now. And I'm grateful and I'm proud to be here with my team.
Awesome. And I also love playing outside of legal sometimes because you learn stuff and then you also like learn that your problems aren't necessarily unique sometimes, which is also kind of refreshing. So is there anything that you wanted to cover that we didn't cover?
Yeah, so Product Lab Day is the event. We do it twice a year, and it's our showcase of all the newest things, the new innovations that we've been releasing over the past 6 months, as well as what's coming up next. And so at this Product Lab Day, that's where we're going to be unveiling two of the big new things that I mentioned. Our first outbound agent for getting old leads back on the phone, and then our new voice multimodal chat, so that users can talk or type whatever they want with Intaker. So it's going to be a fun event. We typically reserve it for Intaker customers because we show a lot of behind the scenes stuff there. But if you're listening, if you're part of Tiffany's audience right now, then I think we'd love to have you. And so there will be a link to sign up in the show notes in the description for this.
And if anyone has trouble finding that, reach out to me. And if you have Joe's email, reach out to Joe. But be happy to give me the link.
Yeah, you can always, if you want to reach out to me, connect on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me, or you can send me an email. It's joe@intaker.me. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to connect with you, Mr. or Mrs. Listener out there. And just Tiffany, thank you for having me. I always love getting to connect with you to talk, whether that's about books, about philosophy, about law firm marketing, the whole thing. So.
Oh, don't get me started on books. I was an English major. I will talk about it. All right,
Atlas Shrugged. I know we had a moment at the last conference about Atlas Shrugged. I'm not finished with it yet. I'm like 80% there. Yeah. I'm almost done. I know it was last November that we were talking, and it's 5 months later, and I'm still not done. But it's a big book, so cut me some slack.
And I defend that book because I get like a lot of people's criticism of her, but like you can't ignore that is a pretty good feminist book for the time it was written. But we'll get down on a rabbit hole on that one. Well, thanks so much, Joe, for coming on and going and talking with me about Intaker and AI and all the cool stuff that you guys are doing. Really appreciate it. Thanks again. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
You're awesome, Tiffany. Thanks.